Okay, I'll stop now. But I'm really excited because it's finally fall, like properly fall. Like I put up the Halloween decorations like weeks ago, but today when I walked outside to go for my morning walk and it was kind of chilly outside and you just smell that nice crisp fall air, I'd be like, yes, it's finally here. Time to bust out the long sleeves. I've always enjoyed wearing long sleeves over t-shirts. I don't know why. That's just always been my preference. Also the same reason why I've been wearing the same long sleeve shirts for like the last decade. Do you prefer short sleeves or long sleeves? Or, dare I say, no sleeves? Can you imagine that, Barry? No sleeves. Well, technically, Barry doesn't have sleeves because he doesn't have arms. But anyway, what are we talking about today? Luffy being free. The most free man in the entire world, in the seven seas. That's what we're talking about today. So this was something that actually got brought up in the chapter, chapter 1061. Spoilers for all those inclined. I actually did not mention it in the review, and the reason for that, there was a very good reason. I skipped it because that happens a lot when I'm reviewing a chapter. I'll get like ahead of myself, like I'm like zooming through the chapter, like zooma, 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 and then I'll see a scene and then I'll just like, skip over it and then I'll just start talking about the next scene and I'll just forget about it. So yeah. Also, I talked about it in the live reaction though, so if you want to go back and check that out. But here's the scene. The scene is when Jinbei, Chopper, Luffy, and Bonnie are all hanging out in the cave underneath Egghead Island, and that's when like their first, meeting Bonnie. Luffy calls her Bogey or whatever, and so they're all changing their clothes, drying off, and everything like that. And Bonnie actually brings up, like, I didn't even consider how the rest of the world would really respond to Luffy's wanted poster, or I guess I just assumed no one would bring it up. It's kind of strange because, Luffy looks like this in all wanted posters beforehand, black hair and everything, and then all of a sudden in this new one, it looks like he literally went through an anime character transformation sequence, like Luffy's a magical girl or something, So, yeah, it makes sense that most people would be curious, like, even regular civilians, people that know nothing about the Straw Hats beyond the fact that they're pirates, they're getting the wanted poster, like, new wanted posters today. Oh, thanks, Bill. Let's open it up here. You'd look at it and you'd be like, oh, that Monkey D. Luffy, he's dyeing his hair again. He goes in and yells at his kids, if I ever catch you kids dyeing your hair like this pirate piece of shit, you're kicked out of my house. And it's like, yeah, so I'm sure the regular civilians living in the world would be confused enough by Luffy's wanted poster, his new appearance and everything. But I'm sure it would even be more confusing for like the supernovas, people that have actually met Luffy before and like, what happened to you? So Bonnie brings it up here. Bonnie mentions like, what's the deal with your wanted poster? It caused a really big stir all over the world. I assumed your hair was just white now, which is funny because I guess Bonnie and all the other, pirates in the world, they just assume that like, okay, I guess Luffy just dyed his hair. He wanted a change. It's like, that's fine, but like, why are there like steam like billowing off of him and everything? Why is he smiling and grinning? Like, what's happening here? So Bonnie meets Luffy in the last chapter, and his hair's back to being black, back to being normal and everything. And so Bonnie's just like, what's the deal here, right? And Luffy actually has a response to that, and it's interesting because this is Luffy's like first time actually referencing this form to somebody else. You know what I mean? Because, like, immediately after the fight between Kaido and Luffy, Luffy loses power and he hits the ground and he passes out, okay? And he's, like, in a coma for a couple of days, right? Now, I'm sure that the Straw Hats probably asked Luffy, like, what happened when you were fighting Kaido? What was that? Your fist was the size of a mountain. What was going on there? And I'm sure Luffy explained it to them, but this is the first time we're actually getting this response from Luffy. Luffy says to Bonnie, that's the form I take when I am the most free. And he kind of flexes and he kind of like inflates his body a bit. He doesn't really go into Gear Fifth. What he does, I think, is just like the anime thing where it's like he's mimicking Gear Fifth, okay? Where I'm sure when this scene happens in the anime, it won't actually be Luffy going into that form. It'll just be Luffy like, puffing up his body a little bit and his hair is standing on end mimicking Gear Fifth. So it's more of like a dramatic effect or comedic effect rather than the actual form. However, there's a lot of interesting points here. So after Luffy says that, like, that is the form I take when I am the most free. Gadoosh! And then Bonnie's like, Okay, what does that mean exactly? By the way, where's the rest of your crew? So Bonnie kind of like gets Luffy distracted because she's like, what does that mean? And before Luffy could follow that up with anything, Bonnie asks like, well, where's the rest of your crew? Anyway, there's only like 3 of you here. It's Jinbei, Chopper, and Luffy. And Luffy's like, oh yeah, they're still at sea. Don't worry, they'll be fine. It's okay, And then Bonnie also brings up the fact that Jinbei's there. Like, I can't believe, Jinbei, the first son of the sea, the knight of the sea, is here as a member of your crew as well. And Jinbei is there with his dad bod, and he's just like, yep, that's right. This honestly doesn't give us any new information that we had, that we didn't already get between Luffy and Kaido when they were fighting, right? Because when Luffy first went into Gear 5th, when he went into the Sun God form, one of the first things he said was, this is my apex, this is me at my greatest, this is me when I'm the most free! And he just can't stop laughing, okay? So Luffy was aware, he's not aware that he has a mythical zone, although I'm pretty damn sure on the island with Vegapunk that has cracked the nugget when it comes to all sorts of lineage factor DNA research, and he knows what devil fruits are. I am sure that Vegapunk will be able to look at Luffy and will be able to, figure out right away that Luffy has a mythical zone, right? Even if Vegapunk is not previously aware of the mythical zone Sun God Nika's, presence, because that's a devil fruit that the world government tried to hide for years. So maybe even Vegapunk doesn't know about, like, the actual model, but he knows of, like, the classification. In fact, I could even see a scene with Vegapunk, like, pulling out one of his inventions, and it's like, ah, yes, this is the devil fruit analyzer thingamajig, like, whatever, right? And it kind of reminds me of, like, Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb, where he would always come up with some kind of crazy invention and be like, this is the platypus, discombobulator, Perry. You have been defeated, right? So what if he has a machine or something where he takes a blood sample from a devil fruit user and the machine can tell him, like, this is a Logia, like, because honestly, it's been mentioned before. It has been mentioned, eating a devil fruit alters your lineage factor. It changes your DNA. So I'm actually kind of curious, like, hold on, I have a bunch back here. Scoot. All right, what do we want? I'll just take the op fruit. That's an easy one. Hold on, I gotta jet boost my way back. All right, there we go. So, like, seriously, what are these things? When you eat them, they literally change your DNA. Okay, so Vegapunk would therefore be able to make some sort of device being able for him to, like, analyze the blood of a devil fruit user and be like, Chopper, you have the Hito no Mi. And Chopper's like, cool. And Luffy, you have, and then Luffy will be like, I know, I have a paramecia. And Vegapunk's looking at it and he's like, actually, no, you have a zone fruit. And Chopper's there like, Luffy, are you actually a monkey? And he's like, I have a monkey fruit. I'm like, no, well, kind of, yeah, you have a human fruit. And I want to see the scene with Chopper and Luffy. Like, if Luffy's gonna find out he has the human fruit, a mythical variant, mind you, but if he finds out he has a human fruit, I just want a scene with Luffy and Chopper where Chopper's like, wow, Luffy, you're like my big brother. And it's like, we have the same kind of fruit. I think that would just be really adorable. That'd be really funny if there was a scene with the two of them like that. Also, there's been a theory around for a while, and I'd actually would really enjoy if this turned out to be true. Chopper does not just have the regular human fruit. Chopper has, like, the ancient variant of the human fruit. He has, like, human fruit model, like, Neanderthal or something like that. You know what I mean? Like an ancient, like a caveman kind of human, because when he turns into his human form, he's still very bestial. He doesn't look like a regular human. He looks like maybe like a human, like a few notches higher on the evolutionary ladder or lower on the evolutionary ladder. You know what I mean? Something like that. So maybe possibly something like that there. Maybe. So, there's that, and then maybe also Robin and Brook. Oh my god, Brook has the revive fruit. I mean, Vegapunk would be so interested in, like, studying Brook, just by the nature of him existing and channeling the powers of the underworld up from, like, the underrealm into his sword and channeling soul power. Like, Vegapunk would be very fascinated by that. Maybe Robin can learn a little bit more about her devil fruit ability and everything like that, but I'm going on and on about other devil fruits in the Straw Hats. I might just make a video about that, because that's an interesting concept. concept of them learning about the true nature of all of their abilities and then therefore being able to get stronger because they understand who they really are. You know what I mean? Maybe something like that. But anyway, back to Luffy. So Luffy was already aware that going into this form meant that he was the most free. But now, what is he going to do with this information exactly? You know what I mean? It's sort of like Luffy doesn't really know about the full prophecy of JoyBoy. Like, he's heard the name JoyBoy plenty of times before this. You know, Kaido even brought him up a few times during the fight. So Luffy's not aware of the prophecy, but he's aware of, like, okay, when I go into this form, I feel like I can do anything and everything. I am the most free human being in the world or whatever. I can take whatever form I desire. I can fight any way I desire. You know, so I'm just like so filled with laughter. So even while he's not in the form, Luffy still remembers what the feeling, the sensation is like. You know, it's not like, I mean, it is sort of like a personality change, but not like to the degree where Luffy, it's not like a split personality thing where Luffy is like how he is like in his normal form, and then when he goes into Gear 5th, all of a sudden his personality shifts or whatever. It's just he feels a tremendous amount of like elation or whatever, like the adrenaline's pumping or whatever, and he just feels like everything is amusing, this is great. You know, he never really feels like beaten down by his opponent. Even if he is on the receiving end of like Kaido's Thunder Bagara, he can still just laugh it off, okay? So he remembers that, and I'm assuming Luffy can go into that form whenever he wants. There's not like a limit. Well, there is a time limit with being in the form, but as for that, I think Luffy figured out how to go into the form. There was even a scene during the battle with Kaido where Luffy went out of Gear 5th and he went right back again. So I don't know if Luffy has to like pump his heart a few times to get the rhythm going. Maybe, actually, it'd be really cool if Luffy goes the way that Luffy goes into Gear 5th. Like, you know how he has to like pump his legs to go into Gear 2nd, he blows into his bones in order to get Gear 3rd, his muscles for Gear 4th. Wouldn't it be interesting if in order to go into Gear 5th, he literally like bangs his chest like a gorilla, which is indicative of like the drums of liberation, you know what I mean? Just like, oh yeah, you get the drums going, but also that gets his heart beating in the rhythm, and then boom, Gear 5th. There you go, right? Because the way he went into Gear 5th the first time, he was kind of dead on the ground after being defeated by Kaido, and then his hair just turned white, and then he just got back up and just started jumping around, right? And then the other time, when he disengaged, he kind of lost, he's just like, and then he kind of, I think his heart just started beating with that rhythm, but I would like to actually see him like beat his chest. I think that would be pretty cool because it's like drums and his heart is also there, and then that gets it into the rhythm, and then he can go into Gear 5th, you know, for, I don't know, X number of minutes. I'm sure he'll improve with like his time limit, how often he can stay in Gear 5th, the more that he fights, right? Okay. So here's the thing though. The longer that Luffy stays in Gear 5th, like I said, it's not really a personality shift. It's still him. But with all these, like, all this elation and joy, feeling and laughter when he goes into that form, I wonder if it's going to lead to him making a certain decision. You know what I mean? Like, while Luffy's in Gear 5th, he just has this sensation of, like, you know, I feel like I can do anything, therefore I want to go and fight against Blackbeard right now and defeat him. Or it's like, I feel like I can go rescue Vivi right now, or I feel like I could go find Sabo right now. Like while he's in the form, is he going to make a decision and go do something that maybe otherwise he was like kind of talked out of doing with the rest of the crew? But while he's in that state of like pure joy and happiness, and he feels like he's like the most free, he's like, I could do whatever I want. You know what? I want to go save Vivi. I'm gonna go do that now. And he just like jets off and just like, okay, I don't know. What I'm really saying here is that form gonna make him like more unpredictable, but also could cause problems later down the line? Like, Luffy's already been kind of scattershotted and kind of does whatever he wants. Now imagine that dialed up to like 10. You know what I mean? Now imagine him on that level, okay? So something else that I realized, and I started to think about this, I might make a solid video on it. I'm not really sure. This might just be the video. So I was going through all of the members of the Will of D, and a big theme that runs through all of the members of the Will of D, and also other characters in One Piece, they don't necessarily have to bear the initial of D, but freedom, right? if you look at all of the different members of the Will of D, they each have a different meaning of what freedom is, because freedom is not just one static thing. Okay, you can bend freedom to mean like things on the good end of the alignment scale and on the evil end of the alignment scale, the neutral end, like, you know, personal freedom, freedom for the whole world, freedom for this one set of people, freedom for, you know, emotional freedom, you know, that kind of stuff. You can look at all these different ideas for freedom, right? Like the idea of freedom for the fishmen would be like just being able to like live under the sun, you know, that level of freedom, whereas the freedom that the Tenryubito are vying for, very, very different kind of freedom. Freedom for just themselves, essentially, their own select group of people. They're the only ones that deserves this freedom. Luffy's idea of freedom is different from Roger's idea from freedom, which was probably different from, like, very different from Blackbeard's idea of freedom and Rox's idea of freedom. Maybe Luffy and Roger's idea of freedom, which would be very similar, actually, because they have the same dream, as we know. So that's probably not a good example. Let me put it another way. Luffy and Roger's sense of freedom is like the opposite of Blackbeard and Rox's sense of freedom. That actually would make a lot more sense, because like Roger and Rox fought back in the day, and then like through their inherited wills, like Luffy carries on, you know, Shanks's will, which is the same will as Roger, and then Blackbeard has a connection with Zebek in some way. We don't know if he's Zebek's son or some blood relation or just somebody else that's like, you know, like inspired by Rox. Rox and Blackbeard would also have the same kind of idea for freedom, okay? And if you look at Odin. Odin was not confirmed to have the Will of D, but I'm pretty sure he did. It's just maybe in the tradition of Wano, you don't have a middle name, but, you know, like he died with a smile on his face and everything. You know, Kozuki Odin definitely had the Will of D, even if it didn't have like the actual initial in his name, you know what I mean? And look at the way that Odin lived his life. Like his idea of freedom was kind of like the very rude kind of sense of freedom. Like, I'll go anywhere I want, I'll do anything. I'll barge into the restaurant, I'll grab all the food and eat it. Then I'll like make a pot of Odin in the middle of a funeral pyre. You know, I'll barge right into a funeral and just eat some Odin on the corpse of my dead friend as his family is just watching in shock and awe. You know, like that was kind of Odin's sense of freedom. Like, I'll do whatever I want, go wherever I want, don't care about like what's rude and what isn't. You know, so that was his sense of freedom, right? You could also say Luffy's a little bit like that too, but not quite as extreme as Odin was with it, right? So they all have their different senses of freedom. Luffy's is definitely in line with Shanks and Roger's, and the idea is that Luffy's dream was pretty much the same as Roger's dream there. So I'm wondering, now Roger did not have the human fruit model Nika. That was something that was all theory for a while there too. It actually kind of weird, it kind of circled back in a weird way, where it was like maybe back before we just thought Luffy had the Gumu Gumu no Mi, the idea was, well, okay, maybe Roger had the Gumu Gumu no Mi as well. Like Roger had the fruit and then he died, and then Shanks got it, and then Luffy ate it, and then he has the same fruit as Roger. Clearly that was not the case, but Roger did. He was part of this prophecy as well, and he was a candidate to become JoyBoy as well. He couldn't actually go into the form or anything like that, but he realized that he was free, and in a sense, he became the most free person in the entire world when he became the Pirate King, okay? So I was wondering about that. Like, was there a point during Roger's journey where he realized, like, hey, I am, like, part of this prophecy, and I'm going to vie to be the most free person in all of the world, and he pursued Laugh Tale and the Road Poneglyph because of that? Or was it just because, like, and it's not like, I'm trying to think of a good way to phrase this. This is getting very, you know, prophetic and everything like that. Like, okay, Roger always wanted great adventure, okay? So I'm not saying that Roger changed his direction just because he learned about a prophecy. Like, Roger read about the JoyBoy prophecy, and he's just like, I have to be doing this instead. What I am saying is that what if Roger found out about the prophecy and that just emboldened him? That was like, oh, this is just an even better reason for me to do what I'm going to do and find Laugh Tale, this final island. And you know, that was why he was so dedicated to it before he died. Like, there was something that, like Roger was always out there looking for adventure, but there was one moment where something just lit a fire under his ass, where he's like, okay, we have to go full steam ahead, even faster than we were going before, mateys. Like, yarg, Rayleigh, Gabon, you know, hoist the mizzen mast, you know, install the turbo drive, matey. We be going. Yo ho, go! Pirate King Roger, go! Pirate King Roger, go! Pirate King Roger, whoa! Da na 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 na. King Roger, go! Okay. I'm good. I'm a Power Rangers kid. I grew up in the 90s, okay? You know, when you're singing the Power Rangers Turbo theme song, you just have to roll with it. What are you gonna do? Just sing like one verse? No, you gotta go through the whole thing. Waiting that the Straw Hats ever go to space. Then I get to sing the Power Rangers in Space theme, which is probably my favorite. No, I'm not going to do that now. Okay. But that's the idea. Roger found out about the prophecy. He's like, awesome, let's do it. And then, you know, that like made him even more inspired. Oh, by the way, okay. So, I had this idea today, actually, when I woke up. I was like, all right. Remember that one Naruto movie? I think it was called The Lost Tower or something, where Naruto goes back in time and meets Minato, and that's like the whole premise of the movie, like Naruto meets his dad. What if, and just follow me on this, what if they do a One Piece movie where, or maybe like even an OVA, where Luffy gets sent back in time and meets Roger? Now, that's a problem because, like, Toki expressly mentioned in the story, like, time travel backwards is impossible. And that opens a bunch of other problems. But, like, yeah, whatever. It could be a movie. It could be an OVA. It's very clearly not canon. But it would be so... Wouldn't that be cool? I just want to see, like, Luffy and Roger, like, palling around and, like, interacting with one another. I think that would be great. You know what I mean? That would be hilarious. Like, the comedy and also the badass fight scenes. Like, dude, it would be amazing if we could ever have that. Probably never will, like, even as a movie, because that is kind of a far out there sort of premise that sort of like takes like one of the core foundations of, because they're not, time travel exists, but Oda very clearly set the rules for time travel. So unless Vegapunk invented a time traveling DeLorean, which, okay, he might have done that. I mean, like, I'm just saying, if anybody in the world could have invented a time machine. Oh wait, what if Vegapunk did invent a time machine? All right, that'll be another video. Okay, so we got to do like 3 other videos after this one that are springing from this video, one of which being, did Vegapunk invent a time machine? Because Oda could have just had Toki say that, like, time traveling to the past is impossible, just for Vegapunk to be like, you know, and I took that personally in the next arc, and he invented a damn time machine, right? So, yeah, Vegapunk might have actually done that. I don't know. Holy crap. Okay, but anyway, getting back a little bit more on topic, and I'll just kind of end it out with this. So, if Luffy ever does learn about the JoyBoy prophecy, okay, because he is a big part of this now. Like, he is very clearly the chosen one, okay? He's very clearly supposed to be the person that is going to have the power of the Sun God. Like let's say Luffy learns about the Sun God. Luffy learns about the story of JoyBoy. They learn about the Void Century, which I would assume that would not happen until they reach Laugh Tale already. But how do you think that would change Luffy's opinion? Do you think Luffy... I mean, I feel like Luffy would just still do whatever he was doing. If anything, it's either the story would make him more, like, emboldened to do it, just like Roger did. Like, oh, that's cool. That's a really cool story. I like that story of JoyBoy. I like that story of the Sun God. Okay, I'm still gonna do what I always wanted to do. Like, that's just my normal thing, but that just makes him more excited to do it, right? He just, like, found out another aspect about, like, you know, these great heroes of the past or whatever. Or Luffy would be indifferent toward it. Luffy would just be like, I mean, that's whatever. I don't care about that story. I'm just gonna keep on doing whatever I'm doing. Either way, that would sort of be the right path he's supposed to take. You know what I mean? Like, if he's the one vying for freedom, and I think that his dream has something to do with, like, making the whole world free, as in, like, having this big party or whatever, you know, he's gonna reach that no matter what. It doesn't matter if he learns about the prophecy or not. It's just that I want to see Luffy's reaction to the prophecy. You know, whether it's going to be like, wow, that's a crazy story, or, I don't care. Either way, he's still going to be Luffy. You know what I mean? Anyway, yeah, that's the video. I just, there's a random Power Rangers Turbo music video in the middle of that, but there you go. Now, moving on to monkey facts, which are actually more of great ape facts in this episode, but still, monkey facts. Go to the intro.
You got the funky monkey facts with Tekking101.
Okay, so I will get back to the monkeys, because monkeys and apes are different, but I will bring this up because this is fascinating to me. Do you know how many genuses of great apes exist on this planet Earth? Guess a number. Okay, it's 4. Okay, that's it, 4. And out of those 4 genus, there's only 8 species. That's it. 8 species of great ape exist on this planet, and that is it. Okay, so as for the genus, one of them is orangutans, of which there are 3 separate species of orangutan that we're actually going to be covering today. Then there are gorillas, and there are only 2 species of gorilla, eastern and western gorilla. Then there are chimpanzees, of which there are only 2 kinds of chimpanzees in the world, 2 kinds of chimps. And then that's 7 species. So you want to guess what the last species is? Homo sapiens! That's right! I get to be a part of this week's Animal Facts. In fact, you get to be a part too, because we're all Homo sapiens. Everybody watching this is a Homo sapien. Somebody's gonna like pull up their cat to the video or whatever, and the cat's just gonna be like, the hell are you saying? You know, somebody's dog, somebody's bird is like watching the video, like, oh, come on. Somebody dropped their phone in the sewer, and now a rat is like watching me on YouTube or whatever, and the rat's just like, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. But we're all Homo sapiens. Everybody comprehending what I'm saying right now is a Homo sapien. So that's pretty cool. That's all that's left in the world, great apes. There were others, like Neanderthals and stuff, but they're not around anymore. So let's talk about orangutans, though. Orangutans are probably my favorite out of all of the great apes. Gorillas are really cool. Chimps are really cool. Humans are eh. But, you know, orangutans are really cool because they're orange and they have, like, giant satellite radar dishes for faces, you know? So there's 3 different species. There's the Bornean, there's the Sumatran, and there's the Tapanuli orangutan. They all live in Indonesia. I believe the one that has the widest range is the Sumatran orangutan that's kind of in the center of Indonesia. The Bornean orangutan is kind of clustered at one side, like the western side of Indonesia. And the Tapanuli orangutan is like the smallest population. It's like a tiny section in the center of Indonesia. There's only around right now estimated 800 800 members of that species of orangutan. So there's really not many. All of them are critically endangered at this point, so that's really not good. But orangutans are really cool, man. I mean, look at them. Awesome. Let's talk about their faces, because that's the most interesting part. So if you look at a picture of a baby orangutan, you can tell that their faces doesn't look that wide. It kind of looks like more similar to like a chimpanzee. And that's because the older that an orangutan gets, its face actually gets wider. So here's a baby orangutan compared to a very old orangutan. Check it out. Like, the difference is crazy. Their faces just get wider as it billows out. So these are the 3 different species of orangutan. And you can tell them apart. They might look very similar, but you can tell them apart based on their beard and hairstyle. Okay, so the first one is on the left. We have the Bornean orangutan. You can see this orangutan really prefers like the split forked beard, kind of like a Viking beard kind of thing. Also, their hair is like a kind of a mohawk, kind of spiky sort of style, you know, like they're in a punk band in the late 90s or something like that. So that's the Bornean orangutan. Then in the center, we have the Sumatran orangutan. This orangutan is rocking a much more, you know, typical beard. Sort of looks like a biker beard to me. And also has like sort of like a haircut you would get, like a bowl cut sort of thing, you know, like your parents don't want to take you to a hairstylist, so they just take a bowl, put it on your head, and just cut around it. So that kind of like that there. I would imagine this is the smartest out of all of the orangutans, though, just based off their hairstyle. And then finally, on the end, on the right, we have the Tapanuli orangutan. This one is sort of like the rebel of the orangutans, you know, like a very large, flowing beard, sort of like a wizened old man, kind of like a Merlin sort of beard, you know, like, yes. And his hair is just a lot more free-flowing and long, you know, so it's like the wizard orangutan, okay? So we have a Viking orangutan, we have an intelligent, intellectual orangutan, and we have the wizard orangutan. Maybe the Sumatran orangutan, if they live long enough, will become the wizened, you know, like Merlin orangutan. Yeah, that's probably what happens. That's actually what happens. And then the Viking tribe are off doing their own thing. Anyway, thanks for watching the video, everybody. This was great, I guess. I'm gonna go listen to the Power Rangers Turbo theme song now. You have a good one. Go, Pirate King Roger, go.